Hi, I'm Jane Marks, and this is From the Heart. More so than any other demographic, young black males are uniquely stigmatized. Studies on implicit bias show that black men and even young boys are more likely to be viewed as violent, threatening, and capable of causing harm. In the face of this specific brand of racism, young black males are asked to overcome economic challenges and limited access to education and health care. It is no surprise, then, that black males fare worse across a range of social and economic measures than any other demographics throughout their lifetimes. The ongoing Black Lives Movement and the devastating impact of the pandemic continues to highlight these disparities. Our young black men face daunting odds, and that's why the value of mentorship in their lives cannot be overstated. Today, we are joined by two outstanding mentors who are uniquely transforming the lives of young males across the Southeast. First, we have Representative Ramon Alexander, the Democratic whip in the Florida House of Representatives, and we're also joined by Royal King, founder of the Omega Lamplighters. And this time we're going to start with Representative Alexander. Welcome to the show.
It is great to be here.
I'm so glad to have you. You know, Representative Alexander has a remarkable reputation for representing your district in just a superb, outstanding fashion. However, it is your role as a mentor that we are interested in because it is such a unique role and it's such a unique position to bring to this role. How did you even begin to get started in the whole idea of mentoring and mentorship?
When I was student body president at Florida A&M University, there was a young man killed in a boot camp by the name of Martin Lee Anderson. He was killed on camera, and there was no justice sought after for that young man, and myself and many other student leaders got involved with organizing to bring attention to that. I had a chance to actually go through some of our juvenile justice systems, and through that, it really started a conversation for what we could be doing. And so right out of college, we created a youth program, a very transformational program built on leadership development, a peer-to-peer engagement model called Distinguished Young Gentlemen of America. And we've been working in the community, transforming lives since 2009.
So it's not just here in this area. Is it across the state or across the Southeast or where?
Yes, we've impacted students in Gaston County, Jefferson County. We also run a national summer academy where we bring young men from all over the country, California, Texas, Ohio, New York, Connecticut, and they come to Florida A&M University. We host it there, and they go through an intensive 2-week rigorous program as we prepare them for the next phases of their lives.
So, you know, this is interesting. You're student body president, and here is a social justice event that happens, and you took action.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
It was a life-changing experience for myself and many other student leaders, and it really made us sit down and think about what can we be doing in our community to make an impact. And we thought about the critical need to address some of the shortages. You know, our young men, they don't have a deficit in talent, they have a deficit in opportunity. And so we wanted to provide them with the opportunity to make sure that they had access to the resources, to the academic support, to all of the mentorship consistently, not once a year, not a few times, but on a day-to-day basis to make sure that they can matriculate to the next phase of their lives.
I like that term you use, deficit of resources, and I think, Royal King, I'm going to turn to you because like Representative Alexander, you too came to that same sense of I've got to do something. Now, how did that happen in your case?
So it started for me at a fairly young age. While I was in high school, I participated in 2 mentoring programs that ultimately impacted and changed my life. One of them was called The Sparks, and another was a journalism boot camp by the local Dallas National Association of Black Journalists. And those 2 programs exposed me to all of the things that allowed me to come to FAMU, which further changed my life, but created in me the desire to want to do something beyond just myself because I benefited and realized the power of mentorship. I said when I was in college at the ripe young age of 21 that I wanted to, in a small way, give back what was given to me. And then in 2011, we started in 2008 as a small program while I was in school, but in 2011 we officially took off, and here now 10 years later, we've impacted thousands of young men throughout the country, and the program is now at 25 chapters strong.
25 chapters strong, but you got to tell us exactly the name of the
Oh,
program.
I'm sorry. The Omega Lamplighters.
Omega Lamplighters.
yeah,
So the initial program started here in this area as well. You know what's interesting to me about the two of you is that, again, you took your own experiences and you turned them to experiences that impact on hundreds of kids. When you first started, did you have that in mind?
You know what? When it first started, we were paying for pretty much everything out of pocket, and we wanted to focus on producing a quality program for the young men in the area. I could never imagine that it would have taken the shape it is taking today. But you know, when it's all said and done, it's about meeting a need. And when you look at generational cycle after generational cycle of poverty and despair, you look at young people dealing with mental health challenges and just a wide range of other shortages that you may face, there was a critical need. And so we began to build capacity and align the necessary resource to step up to make a significant impact.
As you can see, we've got two extraordinary mentors with us, and we're going to return back to Royal, who has been so instrumental in changing lives. And you talked about Omega Lamplighters and how it grew to be such a big organization. How did you get other people to join you?
So in the beginning, it was pretty difficult, to be honest. We started small, but I leaned on my fraternity brothers in Omega Psi Phi, gave them the vision, and only needed a couple to really buy in and be there. And we started with a small group of kids, a mixed group. And from there, we kind of told them and their parents, look, this is what we're going to do. And from that initial batch of 20, and the use of social media and telling our stories, it just really took off because of the growth and development that happened in those young men's lives.
Now, when you talk about it really took off, not just in this area, in other words, did people from other chapters, did they grow it in their chapters in various regions across the country?
Yes, so one of the beautiful and more humbling things about it is that as the program began to have success and people were seeing the direct benefits, young men, from low-income families and a lot of times single parents going on to be successful, successfully navigating high school and college or even entering into a trade, that's unique. And those stories aren't always forecast for young black males. So as people begin to see it, they wanted to replicate what they saw. So we began the process of doing that. And now we've been able to do that in 25 different areas throughout the United States, where young men are being impacted from a model that started here in Tallahassee, Florida.
And the same thing happened with the distinguished young gentleman, it sounds like.
Yes. So we have a very unique model. We're regionally based, providing direct services throughout the Big Bend region. But we also, as I mentioned before, we have a National Summer Academy that we integrate throughout the country. And we've had students from Ohio, from California, from New York, Chicago, and we bring them down to our Tallahassee, and we take them through a very rigorous, intense program model. We go through financial literacy, we go through entrepreneurship, and they have various competitions that really propels them and creates an environment for them to be successful.
I'm curious about one thing. Ramon, are these kids, the kids that you find, are these kids from disadvantaged situations, or are these the top of the top kids? Because so many times our kids who are excelling are exposed to these kinds of programs, and the kids who are at the bottom miss out on these opportunities.
That's a great question. So in our local regional program, about 84% of our boys come from single parent homes. And then our National Summer Academy is usually around about 71 to 72%. And so we come up with a rubric for selecting our young men. So our last induction class for this area, we had 136 applicants. We were only able to select 24.
When you contacted your fraternity brothers and the other chapters, and they saw what was happening, and they saw the changes that you were making in their lives, what happened?
So it was actually the reverse. They began to see the work and started calling me. And at first it was kind of like, okay, but it's like your baby, right? You don't want to, although it's impacting lives directly here, growth, if not controlled, can be a bad thing. So we could very easily have more than 25, but an important part of that is that people have to be ready. So a lot of people want to replicate greatness, but don't prepare and put the tools in place to handle it. So when they begin to reach out, I was very hesitant at first in the beginning, and now it's a lot easier, right? Because we've got everything in place to kind of say you're ready for this level of commitment or you're not. But it was a slow progress, but humbling, because you want to help everybody, but just like KFC and making the chicken, it's only good if you follow the recipe. And so everybody couldn't, as they began to call and it got bigger and bigger, they just weren't ready. And we're creating not just a brand, but we're creating a program to change lives.
Yeah, it's interesting to me, because if I was an Omega lamplighter or a distinguished gentleman, I would think that there would be just a tremendous amount of pride in that. Do you see that, in your kids? I mean, do they come back and they say, listen, I was one of these folks, and this is where I've come, and this is where my life has gone?
Our distinguished young gentlemen have gone on, finished law school, get doctorate degrees, do a wide range.
Wait a minute, you're
of
too
things.
young.
Yeah, and starting from 2009, going all the way through, and making such significant impacts in their community, and there's a great deal of pride. But Royal hit on a very critical point. It's about the quality and the impact. It's not just about doing something for the sake of doing it, but when you put your heart and your soul into it, people don't care what you know till they know that you care. And so when you have that level of commitment and the quality is there, it will create generation after generation. Now we are in a situation where the younger brother or the cousin of some of our older students that came through our program, now they're in the program. We've pretty much been everywhere. And for those young men to be exposed to that, and never been out of Florida, never been to Disney World, but to have that access to go on college campuses to define their own destinies, it's extremely, extremely significant.
Welcome back. We're taking a really hard look at how mentoring is making such a difference in the personal growth and development of young Black males' lives. And we've got two men who are really doing a terrific job. But the thought just occurred to me, Ramon, that sometimes even with the best stewards, you see kids who are faced with all kinds of hard decisions just because of their environment, and you see it happening while they're under your tutelage. What do you do at that point?
Well, peer pressure is real, and so what we do is we create a model based off peer-to-peer engagement, where we develop leaders and we teach them how to think for themselves. And so we are overseeing the program, but we allow our young men in many ways in their leadership roles to run the program. So within our program model, we have school captains, we have a leadership executive board, and so if there's a situation, we actually do accountability partners. We do groups, captains, where if there's a young man that may be coming into high school as a ninth grader, that may be experiencing bullying, he has that network with a junior or senior to look out for them. And so we consistently interact with them. You have to be consistent. If we recognize something that is not normal, we immediately get involved. But because we do a great job on the front end of knowing the young men coming into our program, like I said before, we have them take the adverse childhood experience test. We find out about all those things that are going on in their lives. Now we're able to tailor specific resources for them to be successful.
You're talking about real solutions. And so, Roy, you agree with this?
Yeah, and I think also too, letting the kids know that there's accountability in all things that they do. So in that, when the kids come into our program, we really believe in the African proverb, it takes a village, and our team is in everything. So literally, we'll come to the schools randomly. We're going to their sporting events. We're going to the plays at church. Anything that their parents, inform us of, or the youth informs us of, we're going to try our hardest to make sure someone's there. And in an instance, we had a young man who was being courted to possibly some gang culture. They were trying to get him to be a part of that. And because of our network, they came to us, and, I went directly to him. And, he was honest about it because the trust was there. And so we had several lengthy conversations about why that life choice would, not be the best for him and the potential he had. This is why he was in the 8th grade. And so we loved on him heavily. And now here we are 5 years later, he's a freshman at FAMU.
You know, both of these programs are real programs with real results. But you know, it takes money and it takes resources. Ramon, if I was in, let's say, El Paso, Texas, and I wanted to start a program like this, where would I start with the funding piece?
Well, that is a major question, and I think we have to do a better job as a nation to make sure that we recognize programs that do real work. They may not have the political might, or they may not have the connection that someone else has to get access to resources. Oftentimes you will see firsthand where, based off a connection, someone will receive millions of dollars, but on surface level, they aren't doing the meaningful work. And I talk about those foot soldiers in the community. Royal King is a foot soldier, and knowing the day-to-day issues. I mean, I can easily tell you, if you ask me a student's name in my program, I can tell you every single thing about them, all the details and particulars. And it takes that.
It takes that kind of commitment.
It takes that level of commitment, and it takes those resources that are aligned with that. And so what I would encourage a person to do is to go into your local community, the faith-based community, the organizational communities, and get a commitment from them and say, hey, we're doing all of these boulets and we're doing all these other events, but our kids are not passing the ACT and the SAT. We need to do test prep. Start off with a concept centered around that to create synergy, not necessarily creating a program or organization, but to address a need.
Create that interest, right.
And then once you address that need, you will be able to create that momentum to get other folks excited about where you're trying to go. So now you can start building out a greater umbrella and a greater focus. It's not about creating an organization. It's about addressing a need. And so there are a lot of organizations with a name, but the Omega Lamplighters, they address a need. The distinguished young gentlemen, they address a need. I oftentimes have people come to me and say, hey, I want to start my own nonprofit. I want to do this X, Y, and Z. It is not an easy task. I have sacrificed so much in my personal life. Royal King has sacrificed so much in his personal life. And so you have to be fully committed to doing that. So get and find out what is going on in your community, leverage those resources, address a need, and then allow it to organically manifest.
You know, Royal, you certainly are part of a fraternity. It has the fraternity itself, and again, because I'm looking at it across the country, in general, will they support you financially as well?
Yes, so the fraternity has a structure for grants, not large, and not to say that they're small, but when I say large, in the scale of full-time staff, and not that level, but enough to support some programming. And they're very supportive, but the program is its own nonprofit. So even all of those 25 chapters, all of them aren't directly affiliated with a fraternity chapter. Some of them are just standalones under the nonprofit umbrella. We've been successful to apply, again, because it's a process to get some grants from the fraternity, and those help in small but big ways. We just got our first building, the Lighthouse, where leaders are born and royalty is revealed, is kind of our motto. And that will be the hub, not only just for the kids here locally, but for the national program at large.
We have created amazing programs with sweat, sacrifice,
sweat and equity,
blood,
right.
Sweat, and tears, as Jake Gaither would say. And we're right here. And I tell you this, if someone that is truly committed to addressing what's going on in our country, to invest in the Omega Lamplighters and invest in distinguished young gentlemen, you will see a beautiful outcome. You know, Napoleon Bonaparte said it best. He said, the most effective way to win a war, because it is a war out there to save our young black men, number one is money, number two is money, number three is money. Resources, resources, resources.
Thank you today for tuning in to this very important conversation. As you've seen, we have two men who have taken a personal interest in our young black males who are making indeed a difference. And when I say making a difference, they're doing it with enthusiasm, with personal interest, and with their own resources. And so, Royal, I'm going to start with you. If I had a son, my grandson is only 5, but however, he will be 11 soon, 12 soon. How would I get in touch with you? How would I know to look for you or an organization like you in my community?
So the easiest place is our website, OmegaLamplighters.org. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn. TikTok for the young kids. He's not old enough for that yet, but and we're in the community. We've got a space, the Lighthouse in Railroad Village. The internet is probably where I would start. And what I would tell you for why is that if you want him to become the best young man that he can become, this is the program you need to enroll him in, because he won't come back the way you found him. Might not be overnight, but year to year, month to month. And by the time he enters that world of full manhood, he will be fully equipped to be able to survive, but also thrive.
Same question.
Well, DYG is a life-changing experience. We start taking our young men in 6th grade, and we're available online, dygofamerica.org. You can contact us on Facebook. We have a prospect form that you can complete. We're all vertically integrated in our local regional middle schools, so our guidance counselors have the information about distinguished young gentlemen as well.
You know, these two models are pretty spectacular. I think these are the kinds of models that, again, can be duplicated across the country. And I think when you see this kind of commitment, this kind of concern, this kind of heart, this is what we look for in our young men across the country. Here we have two tremendous examples of people who are changing the world. And so from the heart, we hope you heard every sentence today, because it was pretty special. We look forward to seeing you next time.